All right, good news for the 49ers, John. Not a big surprise, but they have a new, air quotes, offensive coordinator. Mike McDaniel, not going anywhere.
Yeah, it was getting dicey if Kyle was going to lose both his little two minions. And I say that like I'm diminishing their value. Big time. LaFleur is now an offensive coordinator with Saleh. Obviously, his brother's the head coach of the Packers. And Mike McDaniel, Ivy League guy, has been with Kyle since 11.
13 years.
Their relationship dates back pretty.
He's
13 years?
13 years. That's what the Niners.
Damn.
14 years NFL experience, all but one with Kyle. So I think he would.
You're right, because he was with the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
how about the Sacramento Mountain Lions?
That's right. He was with the Mountain
Lions. I think Andrew Sendejo was on that team. Yeah, Tyler Klutz. Made it to the NFL.
Yeah.
I once told Howie Roseman, I will give up my salary if this guy plays in the NFL. Within a month, he was a starting fullback behind Jay Cutler.
And Howie
they went to the NFC Championship. They went to the NFC Championship.
I mean, he was good. He had a good career.
Well, then he played for the Cowboys. Yeah, Mountain Lions produced some players.
Well, you know what? He was a fullback. It's a good thing we mentioned him because that's a big part. We talked about LaFleur. We talk about McDaniel. McDaniel's been the guy that was with Kyle a lot longer. Before we get any further, don't forget, subscribe to this podcast and give this video a like.
Yep, like the video, podcast below in the description. Do that as well.
Yeah, subscribe to this YouTube channel is what I meant. But do both.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does this mean for the 49ers? For all the talk about the Niners and offense and Kyle, I mean, what we're really talking about when we're talking about them is their running game, right? Like, that's really what we spent a lot. We talk about all the plays he draws up and how he's using Debo and how he's using Kittle and what a great blocker Kittle is and how he's using Ayuk. But really the heart of this thing is the run game.
Yeah. This offense is predicated on running the ball, and they gash people on their Super Bowl year. I'll never forget being there for the Browns Monday night game. They had a play schemed up. Breda took, I think, 90 yards. Maybe it was a touchback, so 80 yards. Do you remember that first play from scrimmage? It was like a counter. He went right, cut back left, and he was just gone. That's how the game started. And I remember Kyle said after the game, it's like, yeah, we saw something on film. Basically, like, we knew. Well, that's their run game coordinator. This is the guy that all the players, they just rave about LaFleur and McDaniels. I've always looked at them at kind of like a tandem, but really they're not. Like, eventually both of them, there's a decent chance, could be head coaches in the NFL. It is LaFleur now is a step away. If they keep Darnold and Darnold has a good year, like, more than likely, and especially if his brother keeps doing well, how's he not going to be a head coach in the NFL? We've seen it before, like the Harbaugh brothers. Like, once you kind of get the momentum going your way, it's inevitable. But I just think probably 2 weeks ago, we were going, before we knew anything concrete about anyone leaving, we went, well, Robert Saleh's probably gone. He's going to take LaFleur McDaniels. And then there were a bunch of rumors, like a big sticking point in a lot of interviews around the league were people saying, I'm going to implement the Shanahan offense. So it was like, well, could they lose them both? Could they lose Saleh? Both those guys. And then Adam Peters was, potentially leaving for the Carolina Panthers. Everyone's like, that's not going to be good. They're going to lose Saleh, McDaniels, LaFleur, and Adam Peters. And when the dust settles, I do think you feel pretty good about keeping McDaniels, elevating him to offensive coordinator. McDaniel, and Adam Peters. Like, I think where we stood a couple weeks ago, it played out as well as it could have, right? I guess as well as it could have with Saleh not getting a job, but it felt inevitable.
Yeah,
I would say with Robert, didn't it?
Yep. Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, we kept saying, well, maybe it's not, but then it was just, how's he not going to get a gig?
We're interviewing for every job, and it seems like you're near the top of the list of several of them. It was inevitable. You're right. It's easy to say now that it was inevitable. As we talked about before, if you're in his shoes, it probably doesn't feel inevitable, but it was inevitable. He was going to get a job sooner or later.
There were two guys that interviewed for every job. It was him and Arthur Smith, and it did feel the momentum on those two individuals were like, how are they not going to get a job? Every single team wants to talk to them, and then they're getting second interviews at places.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I think one thing,
once you start getting multiple second interviews, it does feel like you're almost picking, right?
Now you're leveraging.
Yeah.
But I do think, I think one question I have just for the future of Kyle Shanahan is if they keep, if it could be that this time next year, even before this time next year, we're talking about Mike McDaniel as a potential head coach. We'll see. I mean, he's got some other, he's got the alcohol issue, which he was very open about. That was a big story a couple years ago with the Super Bowl and his recovery from that. He's only 37, 38, so there's not a big rush on him. We'll have more chance maybe this year for him to talk, for other owners to see what he's like the way we got to see what Robert Saleh's like over the last few years, right? You can get a good feel for him. So he'll have that spotlight opportunity. But if we just look at him on paper on the spreadsheet of offensive coordinators under the coaches that do what Kyle does, the odds are within the next couple of years he's going to be getting head coaching interviews if this thing keeps on the track that it's on. And I do think, like we saw this year, McVay, when he hired Wade Phillips as his, and we'll get to this separately, but when he hired Wade as his defensive coordinator, that was just, here's Wade, he's a good fit for you. And then he gets Brandon Staley, and that felt more like a McVay kind of pluck and a pick. Kyle just went in-house for his defensive coordinator, and now he's going in-house again for his offensive coordinator. And really, whichever guy got hired, he would have gone in-house for an offensive coordinator. The question will be, like, if this keeps going well, if Mike McDaniel is getting interviews in a couple of years, it's a good news because it means the Niners are winning games. But eventually there is going to be, who's training behind Mike McDaniel is what I'm getting at. Who's the next guy? Or is this is Wes Welker going to be an offensive coordinator? I don't know. But this is just part of the process of guys getting hired away from you.
One thing I think Kyle needs to do now, and he did this a couple of years, like when they hired DeMeco Ryans, they hired a young coach who eventually became a position coach, boom, became his coordinator. He's got to find his Nagy or Kafka, his Josh McDaniels. That guy starts as a quality control coach. And then, you can get call Lincoln Riley or whoever, former quarterback, a former, player that's somewhere like a quality control guy you get in your operation and then you mold and you create. That's Nagy and Kafka are Andy Reid creations. Josh McDaniels is a Belichick creation. They start at the bottom, and then they just learn everything. Right, you just soak it all up.
You're saying they're not there for 3 years; they're there for 10 years before they're ready.
Yeah, but it's no different than Mike with Kyle. His value is going to be he knows all Kyle's secret sauce, and then he got to a point, and hell, it could be back in Atlanta, and I don't know. Kyle would have to speak on this, where he started giving Kyle a lot of stuff, and it was he became a valuable asset, right? Like Kafka became, or Nagy became, or Josh became, and we can play this game all over the league with different young coaches. It is the value of having a great head coach is you foster that and you create it. Ideally, Joe Brady would have been that for the Saints, but he just he went from quality control to the offensive coordinator at LSU. It happened so fast. So, and I do wonder with the media now hyping guys up, and we've talked a lot about McVay and Kyle. There is just a snowball effect that grows like an avalanche fast. It's going to be harder and harder to keep guys if you have success.
Well, yeah, and you think about
young hot shots that are your creations.
Well, he's a great example of it, right? In that he starts getting head coaching. I'm not going to say buzz, but it's just we just look at it and we just play the percentages and go, if this goes well, this guy's going to get a shot to be a head coach, right? Before he's really had any of that buzz, he hasn't been the offensive coordinator. So all the buzz is just Kyle values him. And Kyle Juszczyk was tweeting what a great coach he is, right? Kyle Juszczyk tweeted, nobody gets more out of his players than McDaniel.
Well, you don't have to win to get head coaching interviews. Joe Brady got interviews this year based on LSU.
Yeah.
Right? His team, they're drafted in the top 6. Their offense was okay. I mean, they lost 8 straight games. It's not like he was some star in the league. They're God, the Panthers went 8-8 because their offense was top 2. That's not what happened. But he had so much momentum. These guys, McDaniel and LaFleur, they could be interviewing next year whether their teams are successful or not. Right? We see it going on all over the league.
Yeah, I would say LaFleur probably even needs a little. Right. With the Jets, I would say they probably do have to be solid for him to start getting buzz. But it's not going to take top 5 buzz. Top 5
but if they're 7-9 and Sam Darnold throws 30 touchdowns and looks like a franchise quarterback, I think, boom, he would be in the mix immediately.
Right.
He's probably more unique in the sense that his brother's a head coach. So that name is just going to resonate. I would say if their offense is good, he's a lock. McDaniel, because the alcohol thing, but still, like Kyle believes in him. He clearly has changed his life and he's dominated.
Yeah, look, you overcome an adversity. That's a great part of your story too, right?
Sure.
When you interview, that's something that people will attach to, and it's
I'll tell you one thing he's got going for him. He's an Ivy League guy. He's an Ivy League guy.
Yeah, Harvard,
Yale.
Yale.
Yeah.
Because Juszczyk tweeted a photo of him wearing a Harvard helmet. They must have lost a bet.
Yeah, what I would imagine. I would imagine the Harvard Yale game. You missed that one.
Well, they canceled it.
They didn't play.
Entire season.
They didn't play.
Yeah, but
that might have been from 19 then.
Yeah.